change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
Hi, everyone. We're back for another episode of the Fundraising AI podcast. I'm Nathan Chappell, and I'm here with my sidekick, Scott Rosenkrantz, otherwise known as Skit Caboodle. How you doing, Scott?
Good. I'm good. I'm somewhat ready for Christmas. Maybe like half of my gifts purchased, but it's coming up quick. Other than that, I'm good.
I mean, did you just go to ChatGPT and ask it, like, what do I need to get for everyone, or what do I need to prepare for?
Just lists.
Not yet.
Just lists. I just pick off of what they already chose.
Yeah, I am not ready the slightest. So given that I just moved across the country a week ago, but while I was gone this weekend, my son and his wife put up the Christmas tree. So that was a nice thing to come home to. And so it's going to be very sparse holiday season this year, but it's just going to be time with friends and family and my new community, and excited about that. So you and I had talked about taking a little bit of a break on the podcast. In fact, I think we decided that we were going to take a couple weeks off. And then I surprised you kind of really quickly and said, hey, let's record a podcast, because there's so much stuff going on. Like, I feel like, honestly, like the world is going to pass us by. That's how I feel. The world will pass us by in AI in 3 weeks if we don't record a podcast now.
Yeah.
Do you agree? I mean, I
agree.
I think I'm justified in my thoughts here.
I agree. I mean, I think each of the big players have had a big week, and they still have 7 more days of a big week that they have planned.
Right. Yeah. So this podcast is going to be dedicated to essentially innovations, breakouts, breakthroughs, all the fun things. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how much is hype versus how much is real, because we've seen this in the past where, there's a shareholder meeting and, 2 days before Google's shareholder meeting, openAI will release something really, really big and then actually not release it for 4 more months because they just wanted to steal some thunder. But to be honest, the actually breakthroughs that we've seen this week are substantial, and they're already being released. So we're going to dedicate this entire episode to just kind of break down what are some of those big advancements that are going on in AI. So I want to start with just a little bit of perspective on time and the fact that we just rolled over November 30th, 2022, a couple days or a couple weeks ago. And that was the day that ChatGPT came out, right? So we just passed the 2-year mark. And it's insane to me to think that 2 years ago, before 2 years and a month ago, we were sitting around and we knew about large language models and we knew about like APIs that could call some of the stuff, but there was no accessibility. They weren't affordable. It was just, you had to learn how to program Python to do your own. 2 years. And we're using it, you and I mean, not everybody, but you and I are using it almost essentially for anything.
Yeah. Every single day using it. Probably at least 4 or 5 different times on a slow day.
On a slow day. Yeah. I mean, I'm walking around my backyard. I see a type of mushroom growing on a thing. What's this? I see a thing growing out of the ground. I'm like, what's that? And, what can I do with it? And then I'm going on a trip. I'm like, which airport's closest to this? I mean, it's become such a habit in 2 years that now I truly assume that it can help me with anything. And on the rare occasion that it actually is not smart, in fact, I was asking it how to turn the child lock off my new microwave, because there's a new federal law that you have to hit 0. Did you know about this? You have to hit to unlock your food from a microwave. There's a federal thing on new microwaves. You have to hit stop or 0 to be able to open the door. And I'm like, it's dumb. So there's a way to turn it off, and you got to push a button. So literally, like, take a picture of my microwave. How do I turn off my child lock? And it didn't know my microwave well enough. And I was like, gosh, GPT, why are you so dumb? Like, I was just like so irritated, but it figured it out. And I think it just randomly told me to push a bunch of different buttons, which worked.
My dishwasher isn't working, and I didn't think to use it.
Oh my gosh.
Dishwasher.
100%. Literally, shout out to Angel's episode, whichever was episode 30 or something like that, which for anyone that's new in the AI world should go back to Angel's episode on the Fundraising AI podcast, and it's a total 101. So Angel actually had a leak in his bathroom. So he had a leak in the shower in the bathroom, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, he's pretty handy, but like not, this is like kind of beyond. And literally ChatGPT, like he just goes first, nature goes to ChatGPT, like, what is this? What do I need to do? Took pictures. It literally walked him through every single step all the way through. Sent pictures over today. I mean, phenomenal, like all the way through.
And it's crazy because again, we're in this all the time. There's still use cases like that I default to old behaviors. Let
Old
me
behavior.
search for
Yeah.
this on YouTube to find videos of people that have fixed it
Yeah.
and go through that way.
In one more year, won't be there. So whilst we're talking about things unfolding, I had a reason for talking about that. So 2 years ago, nothing, right? A year ago, like it's starting to become kind of ubiquitous with things that we're doing for most of the things. 2 years goes by, like we're doing it and everything. But the acceleration, we've talked about this before, this exponential technology doesn't advance in terms of time. It doesn't just progress the same way that other technologies progress, of like where you have to have a big breakthrough because a bunch of humans got smart one day. AI trains AI essentially, and humans are guiding it, telling it where it should go and what's right and what's not right. So they're kind of like coaching the AI through their big ideas, which allows these advancements to happen so much faster. So we're writing a book, and I think most people on this podcast at least know that we're writing a book. It's called Nonprofit AI, essentially not just for fundraising, but how to unlock AI for all things nonprofit to amplify mission, essentially for social good. It's coming out in March. And, it's been interesting because when we're brainstorming on like, hey, there's a chapter about this, like what's an idea about that? Or what's this? Or can you help us, shorten this area or something like that, just to get to a point where, the readability is good and there's no typos. It's crazy how we've seen in just 6 months since we've been writing this book together, like we've seen how many advances in even ChatGPT. Like context windows are getting larger. So essentially the amount of information that they can process in perfect clarity is probably quadrupled in the last year, probably doubled in the last couple months. Reasoning has gotten much better at understanding why it's making recommendations that it's making. And then Canvas, which I know you're a fan of, and I'm just still super skeptical of, it's not serving me well, is a really cool functionality of to say, look, side by side, this is what you gave me, this is what I'm suggesting, what do you like, and how do you want to tweak it? Even Canvas is, new, but also gotten a lot better. So it's just crazy how increasingly we're seeing the technology. I feel like we're watching it unfold in front of our eyes. And as we're using it, we have a long process that we're using technology every day. And we can see how that technology is literally getting better at doing the same task that we were doing 6 months ago. And it's just remarkable.
Yeah. And every once in a while, we'll find ourselves in these like brief seasons where all LLMs are getting updated across the board in terms of competition, trying to stay ahead of each other. But we're in one of those right now. Just announcements coming from, again, Amazon, Google, Apple rolled out their Apple Intelligence this week, openAI. Everybody is doing it and trying to stay ahead of each other. So, like, you get those exponential increases, but then all of a sudden, everywhere it's right in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I only have to laugh with Apple. Are we using air quotes when we say intelligence, or we actually think it's intelligent?
I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan. I've been using the beta for a while. It's not fully, like, Siri isn't there yet, right? That's coming out Q1, but the services they have in Apple Intelligence so far, I'm a fan of.
Although I don't know if you saw Ali Miller called it the greatest disappointment of 2025. So before we get into some of these, and we're going to break through pretty quickly, because honestly, anyone who's into this, you're going to have to go and do some Google searching, GPT searching, Gemini queries, whatever you're going to do to kind of get into this a little bit more. But what I think is interesting is we're talking about these advances today and these big announcements that have happened this last week and are continuing to unfold this week, are around pushing the limits on what AI historically has been able to do. And so kind of uniformly, we're seeing the word agentic. It's either agentive or agentic AI. And what that means is essentially that AI is enabled to create its own AI. So I'm going to simplify this for people. There's a lot of technology behind this, but essentially there's a task, and the task has multiple tasks within it. So say there's a main thing that you want to accomplish, but to accomplish that thing, it might require 12 different tasks. Agent of AI or agentic AI, same thing, is able to say, hey, I'm an AI and I'm empowered to create other AIs to help me do this task, this thing faster, accomplish this goal faster. And it can say, you know what would make this go the fastest is that I could create 12 other AIs, and each AI can work in tandem at the same time to accomplish their part of this task. And at the end, we get to the result not just twice as fast, but 12 times faster, essentially, and compile it. And theoretically, the AI manager has control over the agents, right? The workers. And that's the big part that we talk a lot about. It's like runaway AI and where things go bad. And we've seen all the horror movies. And it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to give this one control, but it only has a little bit of control and whatever. We're not going to talk about that today. That's probably an entirely another episode. We should call that episode like 99 or something. That will be our last one. But when we're talking about these advances in AI, they're big. They're not like, oh, I can process more words or I can even create a podcast. These are like, I can represent human behavior. I can look like a human, sound like a human, do human things. And so increasingly, the agent of AI is being deployed into things like character AI, which is like a human doing something. And it's becoming very fast and very lifelike with advanced voice mode. So this week, I got a call to be interviewed on Inside Higher Ed on essentially that role of autonomous fundraising, which we've talked a lot about. And obviously, we have some very strong opinions on. And then I just feel like we're getting more attention about these things. Fidelity Charitable reposted the research study that Cherry and Koshi and I did on how donors feel about AI. And all that to sum up is that I got a call from a just unsuspecting fundraiser, 20-year fundraiser, chief development officer, small nonprofit who had seen me speak somewhere and wanted some time to just talk through some things, and started with this idea of like, you talked about AI, this conference, how do I just buy AI and then have it do all my stuff for me? Like, how can I just essentially like have it make all my phone calls and convince people to give? I found myself, honored that he reached out and that I could spend time with him to talk, but we spent 20 minutes just talking about why there are implications in doing that 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 are beyond just raising money, right? Long-term implications, the generosity crisis, all those things. And it's so interesting because if I put myself back in my shoes of where I started 20 years ago, small executive director of a Boys and Girls Club, I mean, I probably would have been there, right? I would have been in this like, you know what? I've always been an early adopter. I'm like, this can do this. Like, oh my gosh, why not? Like, bots don't get sick. They're cheap. All the financial incentives are there. And when I think about these advances that have happened this week and these announcements, almost uniformly, we have to become very, very good at asking ourselves, like, just because we can do these things, because they're going to increasingly be powerful and amazing and like super flashy, should we do them? And we have to create systems within our own organizations and in our own heads, how anytime that we are introduced to a new technology, is not to just say, let's just use it without any implications or ramifications. Let's take a measured approach every single time.
Yeah, and we were talking about this a little bit before jumping on here. To your point of just because you can doesn't mean that you should, right? In terms of fundraising, you can use AI for everything but the actual fundraising, right? Fundraising is supposed to be a relationship between two people that have an opportunity to make an impact and people that have reasons where an impact needs to be made, right? That should be the relationship. That should be held sacred. Everything else, administratively, operationally, all of that could be augmented. Obviously, not all of that, but that's where you want to start bringing in AI to offset any of that work, right? So that you don't have to do that. So you can spend more time face to face in that human connection.
Yeah. And, when I shared the story with you a little bit ago, you went there right away. You're like, well, what about using AI just to offload and to give you the dividend of time? And of course, that's where we only had 30 minutes together. The first 20 minutes was me essentially delicately educating him why this is a really bad idea. And then the second 10 minutes is like, look, the lowest hanging fruit. I said, so what tools do you use? Gemini, Copilot, Llama, whatever, GPT, Claude. And he's like, oh, none. I don't use one. And I'm like, okay, so your first order of business is spend $20 a month. Go get an account of whichever one. I don't care. Go whatever. And honestly, start asking it how it can help you do your job more efficiently and quicker. So the ROI of AI is not about raising more money, which is where he went first. It's about creating the dividend of time. And I described like how the minimum, you could save 20% of your time to do better work faster and be happier in the end. Like, oh my gosh, that transforms everything. And so, yeah, it was just so interesting to me of like, I want to skip past that and I want to just go to like the easy button.
Mhm.
And that to me is like really alarming and disturbing because I think that's not an isolated case. I think there's just lots and lots and lots of people who feel like I just want the easy button. Fundraising's hard. I mean, Mallory Erickson talks about the burnout factor and all of that. And I'm worried that our sector will just go for the easy button. And so that's exactly why this podcast exists. Yeah. I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, that brings me back to where I heard this, but it was a way to run meetings, right? And one of it was we all have way too many meetings in a day, right? We all have too much things going on, and so each meeting is kind of like a interruption from all the things that we need to do, right? But a way to center it and bring everybody focused is to ask them, what is it that gets you up and excited about your work? Like, why did you get into this field? This is a very
Mhm.
niche field. What made you choose it? So, if you're trying to offload the main objective, main priority of your role, right? Go back to think about like, why are you in this field? What is it that got you excited about becoming a fundraiser? What are
Yeah.
the highlights of that role that you really want to be able to find more time to be able to do? And then see if that can help shift your focus, right? Just kind of reset and focus on, again, that connection.
Yeah, augment your work, the part of the work that you don't like to do so that you could do more of the work that you like to do. So that's probably a nice little segue into, what are we seeing this week? And I know we've got to have an abbreviated podcast. We've got 15 minutes to go. There's it's kind of like Christmas all for New Year's, everything put into one for advances in AI. We'll just start with Google. So, you just found this, I think, was this released today or yesterday?
I think I just saw Conor Grenham post it a couple hours ago. So I think
Yeah.
it just came out today.
It's insane. So he's literally just probably taken a few days off of his normal job and just like watching all the Twitter
Yeah.
feeds because it's just
Yeah.
it's such an AI frenzy. It's embarrassing, but it's also kind of cool. All these organizations are just kind of have all this pent up, stuff that they're releasing. So Gemini 2.0 came out. So for those that don't know, Google's version of ChatGPT, we'll just say that word, is called Gemini. We are now using Gemini if you're using Gmail and you're using Google
Docs,
Calendar,
Slides.
things like that. Right. And it's an integrated version of a Gen AI tool that allows you to kind of do that work a little bit faster. We're using it kind of on the daily for that kind of stuff, administrative stuff, analyzing sheets and things like that. It's decent, but 2.0, they came out with 1.0 about a year ago, right? They'd had a few failed attempts before that were not called
Mhm.
Gemini. So let's be real. They've tried this a few times. They went to 1.5 and now they're at 2.0. But they also have a new feature called Deep Research. And I was just reading this before we got on. Deep Research, I think, is the ChatGPT version of 4.0 reasoning or whichever. What is the name of that
Mhm.
model? It's the reasoning model.
Yeah.
Where
Is it just 4.0?
it's not just 4.0, but 4.0. Well, maybe they replaced 4.0 with 4.0 reasoning or something. It basically has a gut check and it checks itself. It takes a little longer to process, but when accuracy matters, it's actually, a really good thing to have. It makes better predictions because it's actually testing itself as it basically understands what you're trying to do. So, as I think about the world of prospect research, we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, like prospect development, prospect management, prospect research is one of the number one areas that will be augmented by AI. And
Mhm.
when you have a new tool called Deep Research, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
tool that you literally
The
just
sign.
can't ignore, right? You've got to lean
Yeah.
in, you figure out how to do your work better, faster, and then be happier because you have the dividend of time to spend doing more human things or being a coach or being a liaison. I mean, it's pretty transformative. So that's Google's big announcement. Then we got Amazon's big announcement. So they had their annual conference this week or last week. And I saw Connor Grenan's post. I talked to Kelly Hecht at AWS. This is a big week for Amazon. So been a little silent on some things. They've kind of been in the background. I mean, of course, like we do a lot of compute on all of our compute is on Amazon. So how many trillion calculations this year? I know that
I
you
think
just
we're
did
at
this.
23 trillion calculations that we've done to date
Okay, 23
in our
trillion
models.
calculations, every single one of which is on AWS servers. So, needless to say, our bill continues to go up and up and up every month. So, we're waiting for our Amazon sweatshirts in the mail or something. At some point, maybe we'll get that. But
One of these days.
outside of like true predictive AI compute and storage capabilities, Amazon's been a little bit quiet on, the more accessible, usable tools until this week. And so they have 6 new Nova models that are really going head to head and competing with others. Also, another theme for this year is lower prices. So they reduced their price. They're 75% lower than other leaders. So meaning like ChatGPT. So price, and we'll talk about this when we get to Facebook, way, way, way down. Like it's just amazing because the model's becoming so much more efficient that because they've learned, they're just learning off all of everyone's data. They're becoming much, much, much more predictive and efficient in doing what they're doing. So lots of like multimodal speech to speech, things like that, 200 languages. So, which is interesting because I think Google said it was coming out of the box. 2.0 is coming out of the box with 8 languages. Amazon is theoretically supposed to have 200 languages. This is also
how
where
many ChatGPT has?
I think, if I remember, it's like 120 or something like that.
Yeah, it's up
113,
there.
or I don't know, but it's a lot. So the other part that Amazon has just doubled down in, and I know you followed this for a while too, is they're not just interested in doing compute, but actually competing essentially with NVIDIA. They don't want to just be beholden to NVIDIA. So they've developed their own chips, and their chips, this is where it's kind of interesting, actually increased by 4x over the last year and cut their prices 50% compared to NVIDIA. So probably a long, long, long ways to go to be able to compete with the behemoth of NVIDIA. But I will say, if any company is going to do it, it's going to be one that has A, money, and B, gazillions of reasons to do it because they have like all of their clients computing. You don't want to be beholden to, someone else if you can do this yourself. So
Yeah, they're definitely a contender in the space. And I think the reason like they stay behind the scenes so much is because they don't have that front-facing LLM, right? That you could just pull up a website or interact with. Alexa still sucks, right? So until they roll out that upgraded model, which I don't know, maybe Q1.
So that was, when I talked to Kelly this morning, that was what she said. Most people they were super, super excited about the S3 tables because you can index data way, way faster in AWS now. But she said the biggest, complaint, if there was one, was that there was no mention of Alexa. And I don't know about you, but I literally can't handle talking to Alexa anymore. Like I literally lose my freaking mind. Like Siri is also, only marginally better. Like it's a little bit better with Apple Intelligence, but I can't. It's like talking to a preschooler now, and I'm like, I don't have the patience for this. So for all you people that have preschoolers, that was not a dig on preschoolers, but hopefully you know the context of that. Not quite the same as talking to a highly educated PhD student,
right?
Where like OpenAI has advanced voice mode. It's just a completely different experience. She obviously doesn't have any insight on this, but she said that expectations are that it would be coming out in Q1. So Alexa, advanced voice mode, which will be a absolute game changer. My whole house is already wired for Alexa with Ring and Samsung TVs that are Alexa. So 100% it's going to be all over the place. It'll be awesome.
But they're also putting it behind a paywall, and it can't create, right? It can respond better, but it can't create. So is it going to be worth the paywall? Again, especially if they're going to do like the $20 a month that everyone else is doing for their
it'll be worth it. I don't know. It depends. It depends on what it can't. I wouldn't actually say that it can't create. It might be able to create. So, and we're talking multimodal. So, the other part of Amazon's play is the $8 billion that they invested in Anthropic. So Anthropic Claude, which again is not now my favorite model, only not because it's not a good model. It's a great model. It's because ChatGPT knows me better. But that's going to power Alexa really, really well. So powering through Meta. Also, this one is like, I just love to hate. Obviously, it's, Meta dropped Llama 3.3. Anytime I see Llama anything, I just roll my eyes. But they've made it basically free. And so this is an open source model, which I know there's lots of advantages, and lots of nerdy people are super big fans of open source models because you're not beholden to Microsoft or Amazon or Google. You can create your own. They lowered the price to 1 cent per million tokens, which is essentially free. So they just released this 650 million downloads already. So pretty much every college student in the country or in the world probably already downloaded it. The entire model runs at 41 megs VRAM. So or 41 gigs. So it's like really small from like when we're talking about large language models that are just massive. So it can run like pretty much out of the box. So I'm not going to debate Meta for any amount of time. I still have just so much skepticism because I don't trust the company. essentially because they've
Yeah.
had so many ethical infractions in the past. And we put a lot of faith in humans by allowing just people to go hog wild with models. So the last one I know you've been following, like a kid in a literally candy store,
Waiting
which is
every
right
day.
every day, right, is the 12 days of AI. And
Yeah.
why don't you go in and explain this and tell me what your highlights are so far? We're on day 5 today of the 12
Yeah.
days
So
of AI.
they've done 5 days worth. It's just like a quick 20-minute video. Most of them have Sam in there with a couple of developers or project
You didn't
managers.
say who they was.
OpenAI.
Yeah, just to
12 days of
clarify.
OpenAI. They rolled out again 5, maybe 6 days ago, and just talking about a new feature that they're pushing out there. Some of them have been in beta, some of them have been just for developers to test, some of them we've been able to test a little bit, but they're pushing out more advanced versions of it. So they came out with Sora. First one was the updated reasoning, which is now
Right.
out of beta, much faster than the previous version, much more accurate than the previous version. Then they rolled out Sora, which is now available to everybody in a separate website. So it's Sora.com. And you have a ChatGPT Plus subscriber. You already have access to it and the Plus version of it. So you don't have to have a second subscription. I haven't figured out a reason to use Sora yet, but that's again my lack of being creative. But one of these days, I'm going to
I
come up with
mean,
something
if only
pretty
there's a
awesome.
tool that could help you come up with ideas. I don't know.
Then they rolled out Canvas, which again is now out of beta. They made it a lot more integrative so you could build it into GPTs. I really like this Canvas tool. I know that you haven't seen a lot of success with it with longer text windows, but on smaller things, it's so much easier. Like if I'm asking it to write something and then I want to tweak a little bit, without Canvas, it has to rewrite the whole thing. And you know that when you rewrite it, you're going to lose some of the stuff that you had in the original version that you liked, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like sharing a Google Doc with someone and you could just change this or tweak this or remove this section. So it's a lot more interactive. I'm really excited about this one. And then the version they announced today was Apple Intelligence. So today, 18.2 comes out on Apple. It allows you to have writing tools in there so it can craft messages, emails, whatever it is. It'll summarize your emails. Siri can now integrate directly with ChatGPT. You could do that kicked off all of my series. You could do visual contact. So open up your camera and have ChatGPT assess whatever's going on, all directly within Apple's hardware, which is really nice.
That's pretty
And then
awesome.
we still have 7 more days of this. So
I
it's going
know.
to be an exciting week.
I know. My prediction when we woke up this morning and we were talking about AI, because that's what we do first thing in the morning, my prediction is GPT-5 comes out on the 12th day of AI. I mean, it's been a long
That's the same
time coming,
prediction.
right?
Yeah. And I think they said it was going to come out before the end of the year. I think
Oh,
that
I
was
don't
the
remember that.
target
But
window.
it's been a while. And they've said it a lot of times, and there's been a lot of speculation for that. I could be totally wrong. By the way, going back just to clarify, so GPT 4.0 is now the standard model, right? So 4 is not, you have to go retroactive to 4. It's 01 that is reasoning. So they just changed it. So GPT 4.0 is the kind of workhorse, and then 4.01 is the one that uses advanced reasoning. And then they have 4.01 mini, which is faster at reasoning if you don't like,
And
as much
401
accuracy.
now is multimodal.
Yes. Yeah. Which is
Which it was not
pretty
before,
awesome. Yeah.
which is nice.
So big stuff, like big stuff. I mean, we're talking from like the biggest players with big updates, like aplenty. And I'm sure, with another 20 something days left in the month or 20 days left in the month, I think we're going to have a lot more announcements. So by the time this comes out, actually the 12 days will be almost over, and we're going to see if we're going to see where we're at. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. We should offline put money on the GPT 5.0.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident about it. I mean, it's probably a lot of bias and wishful thinking too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Be careful, everyone. I mean, as we get super excited about this, and even with Sora, like I'm like, oh my gosh, it's awesome. We've got to do something and make a video. 30 seconds later, I'm like, this is like the worst thing ever for humanity. Like giving people just untethered ability to create anything they want and visualize all kinds of stuff. We put a lot of faith in these big tech companies to monitor and measure what's appropriate, not appropriate. And I know OpenAI talked about that when they released it, and they're what they said, a little more restrictive than they probably will be later on, just to protect kind of people. But, again, we'll end this where we started, which is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. increasingly. Like, I don't think humans have ever had to do this in history of humanity, of like definitely not at a pace like this, of just because we can do something, we have to almost condition ourselves almost every time to say, here's a new technology, super cool. What are the long-term consequences? What are the unintended consequences? And then take the time to discuss that, debate it for yourself, for the organization you're with. What's appropriate for one sector, you're selling tires or something else, maybe is completely different than if you're in the nonprofit sector where we operate in the currency of trust. So I'm glad we squeezed in a quick little episode, Scott. We'll probably now have to take a break for 2 weeks, although actually my money might be on that. We might do another episode next week just because we're going to be so excited to talk about GPT-5.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. We got to wrap up the 12 days.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Anything last words of wisdom, Scott?
No, just stay attentive to whatever's going on. There's so many things going out. Just stay up to date. Keep listening to us. Tell us what you want to hear and subscribe.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Appreciate you. And we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thanks all.